is to have management. It's very easy to make something, to take something from Drupal, create a little JSON object, save it in Mongo, but you need to understand the status of your data. You need to know, okay, here's my data, what's the last node I stored? Did it save correctly? Are there additional problems? All these sort of things you've got to know. Maybe you want to change ports. Maybe you have different configurations. Maybe you want to enable error handling. Maybe you want to display errors through Drupal set message or set error. So you need to have these type of things. So it's also very, very important to take a couple hours. All it takes is literally a few hours. Build a little form, and that's your management form, and it will serve you in good stead afterwards. Okay, so the management model, like we just discussed, you can, maybe a button to resync the last, 100 nodes, whatever you want. All sorts of things you can stick into the management module, and that's basically it's very, very important to do in the beginning. Okay, in terms of building the services, this is the easy part essentially. Don't reinvent the wheel. There's millions and millions of modules and examples, and if you know, for example, Node.js, you should go to npmjs.org. You can search for pretty much anything you want. You'll find someone else that's done it, and you can save yourself a lot of work. The other very important thing with the services is to understand that if you create something that's open to the world, anybody else can use it. You have to be mindful the whole time of locking down your MongoDB, your database, so people can't access from outside. You have to close all your external REST services. For example, MongoDB, it creates a great, it has a great little service. You can see all your statistics and metrics. You've got to make sure things are closed. And there's a whole bunch of things in the configuration file in MongoDB. I'm not going to go through now, but you should look on the mongodb.org site at what you can do in your configuration file to bind the IP address and all sorts of things, so it's only accessible locally. The other thing to mention is that not all your solutions are code solutions. For example, anyone works either behind Nginx or Apache or some type of server. You can use that to your advantage. You don't have to do everything in the code. You can use it to restrict access from certain places. And it's very important to understand essentially what your code's sitting underneath, so that you can use that and save yourself a lot of work, and also increase an extra layer of protection. The other very, very important thing is, like I mentioned in the beginning, is the optimization. That you need to, you can use, anyone who here uses Linux, Ubuntu, show of hands, Windows users, okay, I don't know Windows, but anyone who uses Linux, you can do very simple things. Use top user. You can use your Mongo management services to check your usage. Do that also in the beginning, so you don't end up fighting against your services in the future. The other very, very, very important thing is fail gracefully. Whenever you have an error, it takes, I'll try to show you now a practical example. It takes a couple lines just to add a few little catches to your errors. No one wants to get a 500. No one wants to get, like all things breaking. Just make sure you handle your errors gracefully. Use your logs wisely. The logs that you have are your biggest tool possible. You have all your errors, add stack traces, and to every single log, add timestamps, add dates, add information. And what that will do is when you eventually debugging your code, you can actually look in your logs, and you can just search through it. You can search by time, by date, and it's very, very easy for you to understand exactly what's happening. Other optimizations I'm not going to get to now. Okay, now is the more interesting part. If I could fix this microphone stand, it would be very good. Okay, I'm going to sit because I can't really stand and use my hands. What I want to do now is I want to look at questions later. I want to look at a few simple basic examples and just go through what it really takes to put an API together. From the Drupal side all the way to the Node.js side, and see if we can do a quick practical example, and then have opportunity afterwards to ask questions about anything that's not clear. Now we have 14 minutes, so that should be fine. Alright, as a start, we're going to start looking at the Drupal side. We discussed that you have to understand, well actually the Node.js, we discussed you need your model. So, if I could. Open my text here. Okay, the model is very, very simple here. You can see we have In Node ID, we have before I forgot to tell you, what we do now is we're going to do an example of how we're going to synchronize comments. So comments are something that you have on most sites, you have on blogs. It's something which is very, very powerful, contains a lot of information, and a lot of services, telephones need comments. Everyone wants to know what the comments are. We're going to look at how you're going to save and synchronize your comments in Mongo and what type of queries and searches we can do on them and what tools they provide. So to start, I have a little model called comment. I have some basic information about it. Much more than that, there's nothing really to say over here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my setters. Essentially, what I want to do is I just want to have a couple hooks in Drupal. I want to take some information. I want to maybe make a little object, do a Drupal JSON on it, and post it to my Node.js. I can save it in Mongo. So if we look over here, really, really simple. There's no protection in the code, so no comments, please. But it's pretty much rough and ready just to show the basic things. So we have a few different things here. We have an insert, an update, a delete. We have a comment, and we call it a little function. It calls this add comment function, and very simple. We just prepare object, which is basically all it really does is just build a JSON object. And we call the little function, which is a request handler, and we're saying I want to save my comments. Pretty much, if you think of what we've really done, we've taken a node, we've built a JSON object, and now we're going to send it along. The request handler is pretty much very simple. It's a post. Just use a curl. Got some error logging, which you don't really care about right now, and some other stuff, which is pretty much all standard. You can find it pretty much anywhere. And I'll put it up on Git at some point if anyone wants to have a look at it. But essentially what we're doing is we're doing a post to Node.js. To which route? To this route called comments over there. That's all we're doing. And we're passing it insert, update, delete, just so we understand exactly what it's doing. Very, very simple. That's it. In total, it's approximately 38 lines of code, and there's not much to really speak about over there. We're now going to move over to the part that's a little more interesting and is probably less familiar to most of the people here. We're going to be looking at the side of Node.js and how we're actually going to save this. As a start, most people use Express to build their web services. It's quite easy to use. You can install it simply. It's very, very, very simple. And just an example, I'll show you now. If I want to, for example, go to my temp directory and I want to make a new project called test, I can simply say express test, and it's built. I can go into test, and then you can just simply type npm install, and I'm not going to do it now because it'll take a few minutes because I'm not connected to the internet, and it will just simply install everything I need, chick-chuck, and you have pretty much 95% of the coding I'm going to show you now, you get generated automatically. What I mentioned earlier is some of the extra features you get. You might notice this little line here, app.enable JSON P callback. Who here knows what JSON P is? Okay. Who here has had cross-domain issues on their browser? Okay. Pretty much everyone has probably had it, even if they didn't realize it. But basically, if you want to have your browser and you want to do an AJAX request to something which is on a different domain, you'll get a complaint, you'll get an error. It will say it won't allow you to do it. It's against the policy of cross-origin, and you're going to get all these errors. You're going to try all sorts of things, got to Stack Overflow and be annoyed, and eventually try some hack, and then probably just, have a cup of coffee. But you just write app.enable JSON P callback, and whenever you do your AJAX request, you say JSON P, and you don't need to worry about cross-browser. It's all handled for you, and it's pretty simple. The rest of this code here you can ignore. Apart from what we're looking at over here is these app.post.get that we have here. When we want to create something, obviously you want to use post. You don't use get, number one, because it's dangerous, and number two, because it's not practical. You need to post, you're going to send this nice object. Also interesting to note is that probably in your production setting, this API will be either locally run, or you're going to restrict access to this via, say, Nginx or Apache to posting to comments from specific IP addresses, just to bear that in mind. Now, we're going to look at comments.set, which is pretty simple. What does it do? It takes rec.body. So Node.js has this callback, it retrieves a request, it has a response, and has the next function, the callback function. What we do here is we simply say, just take the body and just console log the body so we can see it easily, and we're already connected to the database. And we now say, okay, if it's delete, I'm just going to remove something based on my comment ID, and if it's an insert, if it's an update, I'm just going to create. I'm just going to create a new. I'm going to create a new comment and save it in Mongo. So let's as a start, just go to our Drupal site over here, wherever it disappeared to. Over here, and I already have a comment there called test. Let's just add. Let's delete it, and we add a new comment. Okay. The comment I added a city because it will make it more interesting later. Let's say Jerusalem. The title is, hello, and the comment is, I like cheese. Okay. Now we're going to save this, and we can look at our log, which is somewhere. I'll find it now. And we have an error, which is wonderful. Here's a good example to show what we can do with our logs. Here we have Node.js. It says CID is not defined, and it's because I deleted something and I didn't build the delete function. So it was a demo, I'm sorry, and I'll add it at another time. So what I'm going to do now is I just need to make sure I restart my server. I also recommend anybody using Node.js to use NodeMon. It's a program that will automatically restart the server whenever you do a code change. Alright, so let's edit this, and let's save it, and let's see what's happening. Okay, we've seen our console log here. We received the body. It's very, very simple. We have this NID, we have the CID, we're telling me we want to update something, and we have all the information about that, including our latitude and longitude, which we took from the city. If I want to look now in my Mongo database, I would see that structured very nicely. If you look over here, I just find one, and you can see I like cheese, hello, and it tells me exactly where. Very nice. Now, we've now achieved something. We've taken something in Drupal, a comment, and we've saved it in Mongo. We haven't really built a service yet. Now, how can we really use that? So let's return back to our text editor here. And we're going to look at creating a GET request. We saw in our app.js, that we had a GET for comments. So now if I go to my browser and I say comments GET, and you can see I straight away have my hello, I like cheese, and it's all very nice. So now we've reached the point where we saved information, and you can get the information in API. This is something which you could, in theory, provide to someone a list of all the comments. But we work, you could do this quite easily in PHP. We didn't need to necessarily do this in Node. The question is now, what have we achieved, and what type of tools can we use? Number one, it's fast, and number two, we can add indexing, and number three, we can do some slightly more interesting things. We saved the location. Maybe let's add another comment to start, because one comment's not enough to actually do anything interesting with. Let's add another comment, and this time we're going to be in Haifa, and I'm going to say Peter Pan. And Peter Pan likes to fly. We save that. Eventually. Saved. For now, I'll go here and I my comments. I'm going to get 2 comments. Peter Pan and I like cheese. Now we're going to, let's do a query by near. Let's say I want to find all the people who made a comment closest to Jerusalem, or closest to whatever Latin long I wrote in here earlier. So I suddenly push a little, I do now a query, I'm doing comments near. If you look here inside my app.js, which keeps disappearing, I'll just explain outside. We add a new function called near. If you noticed, here, I skipped over it, but anyone who paid attention, you would have noticed inside the comment, I had an index called location, which is based on a 2D index. What that basically does, it allows me to query based on latitude and longitude. So now, for example, if I want to find all the people who commented on all my nodes that happen to live in a certain location, I can do that very, very easily. You might want to might not be comments, and might be any other type of content you want to find based on location. You can now do that. So if I had a change, for example, instead of having 32.13, I make that a 31.46, for example. 31.46, which is a little closer to my other place, and there's 35 point something, 35 points, 35.12. Okay, it didn't change the order, but it's actually supposed to. But so in theory, using a quick query, I'll show you inside the text editor, you can do queries based on location. So if you look inside our comments, we have our get over there, which is, as you can see, it's pretty simple. How many lines is that? It's basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines. Now you have a function called near. All that near does is simply parses your query string to a float, and suddenly you can query based on location, which is a very, very nice feature. Maybe you want to do something a little different. Maybe I want to find all people who commented and said Peter Pan, says fly, or Peter Pan. So I can now come here, I can say, okay, let's rather go to a comment based on text. I want to text, and I want to find anyone that says, what do we have? He said, fly. He said, find anyone who says the word fly. So it says fly, and it says Peter Pan likes to fly. Maybe I said, what were other comments? We said cheese. Let's see who says, people who say cheese. Okay, I like cheese. Maybe I want to see everyone who says like. So I get both. So what you can see is that by moving your information from Drupal into different environments, you suddenly give yourself a lot of tools, many tools you didn't have before. You can now do different types of queries. You can now provide more data. You could take this and do map reducing. And you can do statistics. You can provide a whole bunch of information, and you can also make it much more accessible to whatever you might want, if it's a telephone. And we have 2 minutes, so I think I'll stop there and see if anyone has any questions. 5 minutes? Okay, so you have 5 minutes for questions. Yeah.
My first question is, why synchronize data? Why not just, if it's a large data scale, like you have lots of comments, why just save it on Mongo?
It's a very good point. In fact, a lot of the time, actually, comments are saved on Mongo, so it's not specifically the best example. Most of the time, you look at, for example, something like articles. Let's say you're a big company, or let's say you've got a very big, let's say you're a type of big resource, and you save lots of articles, and you have lots of different opinions. You're sending content to lots of telephones, and you're sending, you have 5 different applications, and you have all sorts of content, really content that you need a CMS for. You need to manage that content properly, and that's exactly what Drupal does. So Drupal is your tool for managing your content, but it might not necessarily be the best tool for taking that content and giving it or providing it to telephones or to other services or to other platforms. And that's the idea. The idea is that you take this tool, you take a combination of, say, Node or Mongo or whatever you might want, which is more suitable to providing that type of data, and you let it do the work. Don't take like a donkey and make it be a show horse. Let the donkey do the donkey work, and the show horse must jump over the sticks. Any other questions? Okay. Enjoy your break.
Это уже